Good afternoon, or pre-noon since it's 11. But hello everyone. Happy International Human Rights Day. Yeah.
Happy International Human Rights Day.
Welcome to YUWANA Exhibition, an art exhibition by Asian Youth Forum to showcase various artworks from youth in Southeast Asia. We would like to thank Perpusnas Republik Indonesia for supporting the exhibition and for Project Multatuli, our fellow CSO partner that supports the talk. The exhibition is held in Jakarta on the 9th and 10th of December and also in Bangkok from 10th to 11th of December. The artworks in this exhibition is part of our latest YUWANA Zine number 7, that has been put visually together by our designer, Mara, who is an artist and graphic designer based in Jogja. Moreover, we have special artwork exhibited from our Youth Minority Circle of Artivism program, where youths in Southeast Asia collaborated to create several artworks together. The youths collaborated included a blind poet, queer and female artists. Before we start, we'd like to remind several things. This is a safe and brave space. We do not tolerate abusive, racist, homophobic, transphobic, ableist, or any other violent behavior, nor spread hate speech or any other views targeting a specific group of people. It will be conducted in English, as it will be recorded and heard and shared to our networks in Southeast Asia. I am Astri. I am an officer for YUWANA Exhibition and will be moderating the talk. I will not share further information about myself. I am simply working here. Okay, but Asian Youth Forum is a youth-led organization that works for advancement of human rights in Southeast Asia. We have Matthew and Ayo around if you want to ask more about the organization and exhibition. Okay, I will briefly introduce each of our speakers today. We have from the very left of my position over here is Gietty. Should I? Okay. So Shuri M Gietty Tambunan, PhD by the way, very cool, is a part of the Jakarta Arts Council and a lecturer in Universitas Indonesia. Gietty is a lecturer at Universitas Indonesia. Gietty lectures for the English Study Program and the Master's Candidate at the University's Cultural Studies, Department of Literature. Gietty received a PhD in Cultural Studies of Lingham University, Hong Kong. Previously, she received her Master of Arts from University of Groningen in the Netherlands and Master of Humanities from University of Indonesia. And her research interests include mainstream pop culture in Asia, such as film, TV series, music, culinary, and social media. She currently serves as film committee member at Jakarta Arts Council. Very cool. Next to Gietty is Devina. Devina is a part of our CSO partner, Project Multatuli. Devina Heriyanto is a membership manager at Project Multatuli, a collective initiative dedicated to serve the marginalized and holding power to account. For her work in increasing reader revenue and audience engagement, Devina is listed in INMA's 2022 30 Under 30 award. Very cool! Would you Next up we have Ika Vantiani, Indonesian artist. Ika Vantiani is an Indonesian artist, curator, and crafter based in Jakarta. Ika graduated from the London Institute of Communications, Jakarta, Advanced Diploma in Advertising. Her work explores the idea of being a woman in today's society with the intertwine between media and consumption. Ika uses the discipline of collage and expands it into workshop, installation, and street art. Very cool! Okay, last but not least, let me introduce you to Julie, our curator of the 7th YUWANA Zine and YUWANA Exhibition. So, Julie is a
Take a break first.
I can do this. A neurodivergent, transmasculine, gender fluid, working class, mainly laboring as a media and cultural worker. He has been involved in the Indonesian art scene since 2018 and transversed through the scene by working with other cultural collectives, such as a bunch of things that I will name eventually, but not today. Okay, they have worked as a freelance contributor journalist at Jakarta Post, and they are now currently working on a climate fiction solar punk anthology as an artistic effort to reject dystopia by building a better imagination of the collective future. Wow!
breather for a second because I'm within the company of very cool people right now. Whoa! Okay, this is a very chill conversation. I have some questions to ask, but generally speaking, I want to hear everyone's view on human rights to begin with, since it's Human Rights Day. A quick sentence or two from each of our very beloved speakers. Who wants to go first?
Someone with the PhD, I guess. Someone with the PhD.
Suddenly the PhD holder needs to talk first. So I think it's difficult to talk about human rights in one or two sentences because particularly in the Indonesian context, it is still an issue. It is an issue that we all need to work on in the individual level and also in the collective level. But today's discussion is a part of our collective work in providing a platform for people to talk about human rights and everything that is concerning human rights. So maybe I will start by saying that we are in the process of working on issues on human rights, and this is part of that.
Definitely.
Let's go.
Okay, that's a tough one to follow up on. So based on my work as a journalist, I find that when we talk about human rights, mostly it's about how we see each other as a fellow human being. And not only as equal, but also to expand our definition on what life really is, to fight for each other's dignity, and also how we deserve our own definition of well-being, and so on and so forth. So probably that's it from me.
I got goosebumps, by the way.
Okay, my turn. To me, when we talk about human rights, especially in Indonesia, I feel like now the narration mostly we used to be only as if it is owned by several party like government, like activists, like people from in a way that it seems like people cannot talk about human rights, and I think it's about time to change that narration. I mean, talking about human rights it's a right. We can all talk about human rights. We can talk about human rights every day. Not only have to wait until something happened that happened like violence or no. Human rights is something that neutral. Everyone has it, and I think that this event, for example, is one way of doing it. Right? Let's talk about human rights in a fun, art, creative, and engaging way. And being a human rights defender is something that we should all be a human rights defender. So I think that's.
Okay. How do I add to those great answers? They've taken all of my thoughts. And I agree wholeheartedly with all three of the panelists here. But maybe what I want to add just a little bit is that while it is inherent, like we are entitled to our human rights, like we are born with it. But the fact is, like in reality, it sometimes it can be robbed by us, like by the power structures and etc. And we have to fight for it. Like doesn't mean that even though you're born with it, doesn't mean that it will be given to us. You know? So like we have to fight for it, like continuously. We have to, I don't know, colonize space, take care of each other. That's a way. It's a way to take our human rights and then give it back to the collective.
Okay, now we're gonna go more into our YUWANA exhibition. Let's start with Julie, our curator. How was the curation process of the 7th edition, and what are the key takeaways from the experience as a curator?
Wow, it's been fun. It's been really fun. Like the submissions are mostly great. You can see, you can see like they're all great artists, and this is actually my first experience in the regional context, like interacting with regional folks and regional artists, and apparently they're all great. Like we all do share some context of colonization, and then being the third world countries, sorry, and And but we can see that there's a like a red line here, like silver running of those contexts, like those historical contexts, those political contexts. You can all see in the arts, the artworks, and but we also are home to multiple, like thousands, millions of indigenous practices and multicultural practices, and it also shows like all of those combined. It shows in the artworks, and it's been amazing curating for this great artist. I wish I can, like interact with more artists. I know like this is not representative, because representation should not be what shows only in the surface, but we have to dig deeper into the context. And I wish I can interact more, but it's been amazing so far.
Yay, that sounds exciting. Okay, so if you were to summarize, what are the main messages that the seventh zine is trying to communicate with the artworks that you have curated together?
Since I'm actually nervous, I'm also nervous, so I can feel you. I can just, read some of my curatorial context because it does answer a lot of the question. First of all, that in the opening I said that I think we are all entitled to grieve, right? Yeah. Like sometimes when we are expressing grief, people tend to shut us off, like, oh, move on, get over it, don't cry, etc. But we are all entitled to grieve. It's a space for us to process things. It's a space for us to sit down and be civil and be kind to ourselves during this time of crisis, during this time of grief, and we should process that. And we are all entitled to grief, especially when we are actively living in the middle of crisis and violence. But like, I'm not gonna say this is like the only time. Like this is the only generation that has been going through crisis and violence. But no, it has been going on for decades. Yeah, like throughout the history, it's all been a chain of violence, and it's intergenerational. The effects of it, grief of it. It's passed down from mothers to daughters, mothers to kids, fathers to sons, fathers to kids. It's all passed down. So, and it's ingrained in our body. Trauma is not something that happens to you, but it is what your body records, and then what you carry on through the years. So you can see like some of the artworks talks about grief and loss so personal, so close to them, and it it's so close to them that it's like a gaping hole in them, and then you can see that gaping hole, but also cannot see it because it's like an infinite darkness in it. But they talk. Some of the artworks talks about loss so close to them, and and their body records it, and how it feels physically and physiologically and psychologically. And some of them also talk about loss by others, like some sort of second-hand trauma, watching other people lose something, and then experience injustice, and they witness it, and it's become their trauma too. And then some of them speak of trauma of their people, like collectively, that their cries in the face of injustice, like from the greedy, the tyrants, and the merciless. They speak the pain of their people, and it's all interconnected. Like from the personal to the structural, it's all interconnected, and it's all embodied in one body. We all embody injustices we face every day in our lives. So yeah, grief is personal, but it also reflects the injustice we experience in our daily life, and we see it like a mirror
Yes.
in each of everyone we pass by.
Wow. Wow. If you didn't catch how deep our exhibition is, it's deep. It's so deep. Okay. Does anyone want to say anything to add to that? No? Yes? Maybe? No? Okay. You know what? We can move on. Okay, so seeing as to the variety of people we have here in our panel, I would like to pose a question to Devina, if you don't mind. Let's see. We're just a bunch of nervous people up front. If I'm being real. Okay, so Devina, since if I'm correct, Project Multatuli is dedicated to serving the. Wait, I'm reading now. It's dedicated to serving the marginalized and holding power to account. So, in respect to that, can you speak more about the role youth has and how their voice can reflect on how the minority groups need. I'm not phrasing this right. Give me a second, you guys. Okay, let me read. Why is it important for us to hear the voices of youth who are in minority group? There we go. I'm not gonna go off script now.
Okay, so let me tell you a bit about Project Multatuli. So as we say that we serve the marginalized, and the marginalized in our definition encompass a lot of people. Like it's the immense minority that we currently have. It encompasses people who are minority by their tribe, gender, religious association, faith, and also it encompasses a lot about economic power, people who don't have the capital, people who don't have political say in the way that this country is run. And it also encompasses the youth because the youth, even though we made a huge chunk of population in this country, I haven't checked the statistics to be honest, but pretty sure it is. The millennials and Gen Z are the majority of Indonesian population right now, but we are not truly represented in the government. Nobody heard about our problem. Nobody cares about our concern about how the rising trust and burnout among our generation, about how hard it is to find meaningful and also meaningful work, let's say, instead of just well-paying and just paying enough work. So these are the problems that our generation has, so to speak. And it's not being represented, it's not being heard, it's not becoming the concern of people who are ruling us right now, because they want to just take away all of our, our energy to become human capital that they can exploit on later.
Wow.
And what Project Multatuli has done so far is to bring up these voices, these stories of youth. We have two series mainly focusing on the youth. First one is Generasi Burnout, or the Burnout Generation, in which we told the story of how young people are just burning themselves up just to get a decent chance of life, having a start in their career. And it's kind of sad to see that because these people is even younger than me. They're not even in their 20s yet, and they have already juggling between work and also school and also personal life because they think that they must do that. And imagine that if they're getting burned out at such an early age, what kind of life they have in their 30s, their 40s, their 50s. And another thing that we have is Underprivileged Gen Z series, in which we talk about how the portrayal of Gen Z in our mainstream media and also by the government is often very misleading, and it sets a very impossible standard to achieve by the majority of our young people, because they can't all be tech savvy, they can't all have um, like a higher education degree, and they can't all be, you know, TikToking all the way through life because they don't even have the means to do that sometimes. So we want to change that narrative, and we're lucky that we have two brilliant journalists and also countless of contributors who are very young too, who are working with us to tell this story because the way we see it, that it's not that older people do not have empathy, but they're just living in different era, facing different struggles that they don't see our struggles as theirs too. And it's kind of hard to tell stories, to tell narrative about something that you don't really understand, right? So when it comes to youth telling stories about another youth, I think it's important to give back the power to shape that narrative back to the generation where it belongs.
That's great. And all the programs, wow. I think I can drag it back a little to what Julia was saying about generational trauma and how it inhibits you further than the physique, but also to the soul, and like it generates down to the people, like generations to come. And like the way I see the whole eras thing, I feel like if we were to have kids, we would generate a different kind of trauma to the kids of the next generation. But the thing that kind of sucks is that we're starting to get really aware of these, and we're trying to heal it, but it's again a whole black hole inside of us that is never ending. Okay, so next up, Gietty, I would like your view, since you have an interest in medias, TV shows, film. How do people nowadays respond to issues surrounding their lives using media available to them, whether it's social media or the arts?
Yeah. So I think I will make it more narrow by talking about youth because the focus of today's discussion is on youth. And first of all, let me applaud all of us here who have been giving platforms for young people. Because the problem is, I think with today's society, I think it has been going on in the context of Indonesian history, that young people is considered as a threat to the establishment. So it's always a problem. I think not only in the Indonesian context, also everywhere in this world, that it's difficult for young people to present their voice because they are being silenced because we speak loudly. Not we, I don't want to say that I'm young, but young people speak loudly. I'm giving the wrong idea to the audience there. So what is interesting, I think, in today's world, because we are highly mediated, right? I mean, every day you wake up, the first thing you do is probably check your phone. The first thing you do is, become mediated. And I think that is something that we cannot avoid anymore, right? It's not unless you live in a remote island with, being isolated. I think we have been mediated. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. And as being discussed, media is a form of communication. We say we express ourselves, like the zine we have that we discussed today. When I was looking through all of the artwork, I feel that these young people or these artists are using their creativity to talk about something that is personal, grief. We cry in our room. We are trained, we are raised to be sad alone, right? We don't share our sadness. We don't share our grief. But the zine proves that grief can be social. Grief can be public. And in discussion of human rights, we need to grieve publicly. So we can have something done when something is taken from us. For example, gender-based violence, we no longer can hide ourselves and don't say anything about it. So I think in terms of arts and media, in form of zine, we use media to express ourselves. So media can be, first of all, making something peaceable. Something that is, in the past, is brushed under the rug. So you don't want to talk about it. If you get sexually harassed, you don't talk about it, right? Especially if you're a woman. But nowadays, you have a lot of platforms where you can express yourself, and making it peaceable means that people will see and people will need to talk about it. It's no longer taboo. It's no longer, hey, let's whisper about it. Let's speak loudly about it. So I think media provides that platform. Media also gives us a voice, any forms of media. Nowadays, anybody can be content creators. As long as you have a phone, you can post something in TikTok, you can post something on Instagram, and you can express something. I'm not saying it's freedom all the way, because there's still censorship, there's still people reporting your posting, and then suddenly Instagram taking it down. But nowadays, because of digital media, it's getting massive, and it's very different from maybe 20, 30 years ago. So I think media provides that. Media provides that kind of platforms. And I'm gonna talk a little bit scholarly now. We call it in digital citizenship. So in the past, the traditional citizenship is a one-way thing. The government say, we do it, right? So young people are often dismissed from that kind of citizenship. Young people, most often, they don't want to be involved in any form of citizenship because it's such a one-way thing. You know, higher power saying something, we just have to do it. But with digital citizenship, because of digital technology, it becomes a participatory citizenship. You can be a part of, you can do civic engagement, you can do political, I'm quoting here, political work without being a part of the establishment. So it is made possible with digital. Now I'm very optimistic about digital media. I'm sure all of you have your worries also about, you know, all of the issues of capitalism and so on and so forth. But in my field of work, in my research, I see there's a lot of potential participatory action by young people because of media. And again, what our friends are doing, providing platforms for young people through different forms of media, I think that's one way to open the discussion, providing a space, maybe not 100% safe, but at least it's a space, you know, we can start from that. Yeah, so I think I will start with that provoking thought on how media can be a platform for young people to voice their concerns.
If anyone wants to add to that, I feel like that brushed a little on artivism. Definitely does. And maybe Ika, would you like to add onto whether artivism is definitely the future of like our efforts in human rights, and how your views on maybe our zines and how zines have developed across the years?
Okay. Maybe first I would like to talk about activism, especially if we talk about activism today in Indonesia. I found that, but if we talk about the format itself, activism, me being a creative worker, an artist, and I've seen the changes and the progress and the variety of activism that Indonesian artists been doing actually for years and years ago. Interestingly, there's a variety of doing it. It's been there actually, it's not new. But I think now what happened was the exposure to that is getting really big, which is really it's really good. I also noticed that the variety of the format that the activism done by artists in Indonesia, now it's become also much more engaging, especially for young people. Not only, for example, even if they talk about 1965, for example, it's also talk about engage to the younger generations instead of just engage to the people who used to be, you know, be part of it or experience them. But just that's really good. Now they're trying really hard to actually creating medium of engagement that also understand by the younger generation. So it's not only just one way of talking about it, right? And from the variety of the activities that we've been doing, also I noticed that including some of the organizations that I work with, they're really particularly targeted young generations, and they really listen and they really ask questions like, so what kind of medium that you're into, what kind of art that you are consumed at the moment, and so how we can work together talking about these issues. That's really great because I noticed that that's not what happened before, but now that's what happened, which is really awesome. And so at the same time, it's also pushed us, let's say for example in the artist community, to be much more open and learning technology, and also learn about the way we communicate better, because of course we also of course understand we come from these generations of artists, old artists with just this you of course can see about that too, which is we hardly even, for example, we can talk about gender-based violence in the art scene before, but now we can talk about it, which is that's really great. I mean, there's so many things that before we cannot talk about it openly, but now we can. I think it's also because part of this whole changes. Now we are also, even from the previous generations, can be open about it. Because now we get support from younger artists, from younger people. That's really good. So I think that apart from that, of course, art is a medium by itself, right? Artists is actually trying to communicate something through their work. That's why they use their art, right? And we talk about zine, for example. I've been making zine since 1999.
Wow.
That's like long time ago. Now I realize it. Oh my God.
It was 23 years ago. I know that because I was born at that time.
I published my zine in 2000. And my first zine I published in 2000. And at that time, I'm the second female zine editor in Jakarta.
Wow.
Nobody make, no woman make zine in Jakarta. So at the time, and at the time I prefer, for example, not to reveal myself as a female. And most people think, oh, you must be this tomboy in Melawai with this whole leather stud and this dog marks with this spike here. I said, yeah, that's exactly me. So it's been very interesting the way people think like, there's no way a girl can make a zine. Maybe it must be one of the boys, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I think it's been a very interesting narration to see, to experience that a part of, even let's say we talk about zine scene in Indonesia. Zine itself started entering Indonesia in the late 90s through this underground music community. At that time, most of the zines that we exposed to are music and politics. So that's the first genre of the zine that we make here in Indonesia, especially music and politics, and with the leftist politic direction. It becomes also very masculine and very, there's no room to talk about something personal. Because I remember even at that time, it's very weird, for example, why you talk about boys, or why you talk about your parents, or why you talk about something personal in your life. Alright, we're supposed to talk about politics. We're supposed to talk about music, you know. So it's very interesting to see that even at that time, a part of this idea of making your own media, zine itself, because I came from the generation, of course, that there's no way I can make my own magazine because, if I want to write something, I have to send it to the newspaper, and they're gonna, just I'm not a journalist. So at the time, even the idea of making my own media, like making your own zine, and because you are the media at the end of the day, it seemed something very strange and very far, and there's not even like possible. But even so, I think because originally zine started from America, it started from this bunch of science fiction nerds community, where one of them suddenly make this one zine about science fiction and just distribute it among themselves, and they're like, oh, this is really cool. But it's also not until 1980s, during this punk and right girl movement in US, that it started getting really big exposure, and it started to be like everyone make their own zine, and it's like you put yourself in a media, So this is you in a form of a zine, So I think what's so good about the changes of the zine itself today, I think a part of now it's really big in the art scene, becomes something that very artistic and very something like, interestingly, the changes from back then was that at that time when you make a zine, people doesn't really care who you are, but what they care is what's the message that you would like to convey. But now it's like people really look who you are, like what kind of things that you put into your zine. That's the difference. At the time, I'm familiar with the concept of anonymously, and doesn't really matter who, either you're female or male, but what's important is what you want to say. But now I think that the access of the zine, the variety of the genre itself, it's become very varied, but at the same time, the access, it could be pretty, how do I say it? It could be something like very expensive media, because the productions are also very costly. Well, it used to be just a photocopy. This is like my zine. Wow. This is the that I make. It's like it's just a photocopy. Yeah, it's a collage, just like manual collage. So the way people pay, just the amount of the photocopy, 3.000. Paling mahal kayak 5.000, like 5,000 rupiah at that time. It used to be as simple as that. So like, this is my zine, this is what I was saying, this is what I want to say in my media. So would you like to have it? Sure, then we can exchange. We don't do that anymore today, right? Like we don't swap and we don't, exactly. That's really actually alternatives from capitalism, which everything has to have the material value. So I think now the changes, that's really good today, and the fact that we are all media now, that has even much more power, I think, to it and dimensions. And I think I wish my mom make her own zine. I think that will be very interesting because I talk about her a lot in my first zine. I think that'll be interesting conversations, right? We just like exchange zines. And so what kind of zine that you make is like, this is kind of zine that I make. So yeah, answering that question. So I think that's been actually a very interesting changes. And also the fact that as much as we are so exposed to digital media, mobile media, but zine, I think especially physical zine, which is printed zine, is also make a comeback, which is now it gives much more choices of a media, right? We can express ourselves and the freedom of expression, the way we celebrate freedom of expressions in the zine, I think it should be much more now fuller and better and powerful.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm feeling very optimistic from this discussion. Like, yes, we're heading to a good direction. Okay, now, can't remember what I was supposed to talk about. More about artivism, actually. I want to hear everyone's point of view on it and your personal take on it. It doesn't have to be zine related. It can be your own version of art, whatever that is, personal. Me? Anyone?
I don't want to impose what I think about this. Like, this is just my 2 points, but it does sound a little agitative that art is always political. It's never not political. Like, if you choose for it to be a political, it is apolitical. It is a political stance. But what I observe from the at least Indonesian political scene and art scene, and it's like 2 separate fields, like the art scene and the political movement. It's like in Indonesian we call it skena seni, art scene, dan skena NGO. Like the NGO scene. And it's like 2 separate worlds, like and I've been in both 2 worlds, and it's like, it feels like I'm standing in 2 grounds, 2 different grounds, and I have to split my brain every time I go back and forth in the art scene and the political movement. And both worlds, both scenes are dominated by its own elites. Like in the NGO, there we know some activists with names, and the art scene we know artists with big names, and they all talk politics, but sometimes they don't talk. They don't engage with the youth. They don't really listen to the youth, and if they want to listen to the youth, sometimes it becomes a point of tokenism to some extent. Like, okay, like, well, what do we want to hear about youth? And then we say what we want to say, but then they kind of, cop that narrative. It's like they think that thoughts that by their own, like they're not giving the space for us to speak for ourselves. It's like sometimes if you go on Twitter, like tweets that go viral about the youth are not tweeted by the youth. It's all tweeted by the older generation, like Gen X, and older millennials talking shit about sorry profanity, talking some stuffs about Gen Z, and I'm like, that's not. But like they're supposed to be on our side, like because they talk about political movements, and they wanna on the political movement they talk about political movement, and on the art scene they integrate political issues into their arts, and they should be listening to us, but sometimes they're not really. They're just like pop or narratives for their own benefit, and I don't really like it, to be honest. But this is YUWANA Zine is a great opportunity for youth to have their own space. Although there is kind of a debate on how to define youth, like what age range, and I think it is debatable because ASEAN Youth Forum has the definition from, I kind of forgot the minimum, but like the top range is like 25, and it is debatable because 25 are not really that young anymore, like if to be considered youth in the political movement, because youth most of the 20, 23, 24, 25, we've graduated from university, we've worked, we've faced adulthood. But sometimes what I think it's actually great about having the top range of 25 is that sometimes our youth are robbed from us in the younger years, and we only have the chance to develop ourselves when we graduate, or when we're like 20, 21, 22 plus. We didn't really have our youth because I don't know, family issues probably, or like environmental issues, or political economy reasons. You have to work, etc., etc. And that's a great chance to also give that kind of marginalized, not so youth, into the space.
Okay. Thank you. Oh yeah, I think that's very good and valid critics also. I think I could totally relate to that. I mean, me, myself, being a creative worker and being part of the both scene, I pretty much also realized that sometimes even the way they would like to know youth better, instead of like really talking and giving a space, but it tend to could be pretty exploitative, and at the end of the day just like one-sided, like there's a subject and object, rather than this like in this we're together like a partner, and this is like we both like we get collaborations between two parties supposedly kan. Tapi what happened was I think also this idea of aku nggak ngerti deh mereka gitu, I just don't understand them. Because you don't understand them, that's why you have to learn about them and talk to them rather than make an assumption, for example. I think I've been also involved in several art projects that for youth, and I can sense how condescending people see youth, and how whatever they make seem to be like little things that being seen as something like not as powerful or not as important. At the time of the day, I just feel like you just didn't understand. I think that's the biggest problem. You just don't understand. Because you don't understand, you tend to, see it as something very less, whatever, So I think that also, require willingness to learn better and to admit, of course, if we're wrong as a previous generation, right? And to learn, I think me personally I'm a Gen X, right? So I learned so much from today Gen Z. I literally learned so much, and I completely agree what you said, being robbed their youth for so many things, because I also talk about some of my friends that experienced that. And I also always feel like the way they fight today, of course different than the way I fight when they're my age, but that doesn't mean it's a less, the war is like the war. It's not about a small or big war, it's just war, and how we actually creating the support system together among generations so that we can survive this war together. So I think that's how we should do it.
I love that. Okay. Anyways, I actually want to go back a little bit. We talked about the different spaces that exist between activism and art. Do you wish it would blend better? Like, do you wish they would respect? Like, I feel like I have been noticing I've been in the music scene a little bit recently, and I've been noticing that if they jump into political topics, they tend to be grouped into just political musicians instead of just musicians in general who pick up the topic. What are your thoughts on that? I really would love to know. Like, do you wish it would like blend better and it would be more respectful and it wouldn't be like buku-buku-bukin or?
Yeah, I could, I could totally, I can experience that too. Not as simple, but some other fellow artists would call me, for example, because I'm doing a lot of art, talk about human rights and gender, and the way they see me as, oh, you are that kind of artist, instead of, no, I'm an artist. No, but you are that kind of artist, activist, whatever. You're not just artist. Just that, to me, that's interesting. Like, why there's suddenly that this particular genre for me, or with this particular box for me as an artist. For me personally, what I'm doing as an artist, all the work that I've been doing, it's all, if it's about something that close to me, which is that's like me and my friends and my life, and as a woman, for example, I think doesn't make me then like you are much more political than the other artists, which is that's even weird. I think no, it's not how you see it. Oh, art is political. It's just about the choice of the kind of art that you make show which political stance are you. Actually, that it's supposed to be as simple as that. But then sometimes we're just so busy, just like putting people in boxes, rather than like let's do this together and ask questions on why you're different than mine, and how can we work together towards our differences, right? So I think that would be the way I see it also. That's why every time like people see, well, there's no women that can be like you. And I'm like, no, you can be like me. Everybody can be like you. Like, I'm not doing this suddenly like, but all these things that we do in our daily life is political. Everything, every single choice. So there's no way that we can totally feel that we're immune or like, no, kita nggak part of that. Or sometimes I feel like actually you do care. Maybe the way you care is just different the way I care. The way I show it in my art, the way I care is just different with the way you would care. That's it, man. But the rest of the things and everything about it must be the same. So rather than we're busy kubu-kubukan and putting people in boxes, what if we just talk and exchange knowledge and experiences and why we're different and how can we work together to make things better? Good to see.
I love that. I love that as a youth in the arts. Like I'm thinking like if there were more youth members who wanted to start with the fear of going into the political side of their views into like they don't like I'm hoping that the things that you were saying that would convey that it's okay to get into the political side of your viewpoints and it be conveyed into art, because even though the boxes exist for some people, it's still a free space for us to venture. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the most important is actually to creating a safe space.
Yes.
It's not about your space or my space, but how we create a safe space for everyone.
Yes.
I feel that every time I'm organizing a workshop, that's actually the safe space that I'm trying to create. I know it's temporary, but at least I can make sure that during people be in my workshop, they're gonna be safe to be themselves, to say whatever they want to say. I think that's what actually we need sometimes in such a long day and this whole being in fear 24 hours a day as a woman, for example. If I can offer you this safe space for 2 hours in my workshop, that's all I can. Yeah, maybe I can do that. I can help. We can be safe together for 2 hours. Just that I think that's might help a bit. I think that's actually the kind of maybe kind of the way we see space also. Space is that have to be like big and like permanent. Everyone can create space.
Yes.
All of us can create a safe space. That's why we have our media, right? Because it's safe space. It's like the zine, right? It's a safe space, right?
Need to save spaces. Yes. You may.
I find this putting people in boxes, happens in all kinds of scenes, right? Not just in arts, I think also in music, in journalism, right? Because I also think that that this is a way, probably for to make sure that people stay in boxes is the easiest way to make sure power stays as it is. Right? So if we can make artists fight against each other, so maybe they will be too busy fighting against each other and not talk about politics. So I also believe that there's this construction, either social, be it social, political, cultural, that enforce people to actually do this. So I think that what we can do for young people is to think that being political doesn't mean that you go on the street and do demonstration. Being political doesn't always mean you create an artwork and that speaks loudly. Being political can be as simple as when I was reading the Zine, I was really seeing that these artists are talking something that is very close and dear to their heart. It doesn't have to be a political agenda that is so huge. It can be as simple as flooding in my hometown. And there was this conversation between the Malaysian and the Philippine artists. And when I was reading that piece, I was like, this is so relatable. Flooding in Jakarta, the same with flooding in the Philippines. And there's this issue of climate change it's not just about climate change, it's also about privilege. Because his book, I think his or her book, was damaged, and then his teachers say, I don't accept your excuse that it was damaged by the flood. So there's this gap, right, where this young person is experiencing tragedy when his belonging or her belonging was damaged by the flood, but the teacher is simply saying, no, I don't accept. So this gap, and that can be political. Discussing about something that is not, it doesn't have to be something. So I think we need to reimagine what political means. So it doesn't have to be like what is happening in most of the schemes here, and putting and labeling people. I mean, it's so easy to say don't do it, but then maybe we have been trained to do it. I don't know. Maybe our education or the state is making us like this. So I think we need safe spaces. We need workshop platforms that invite not just young people. I think also the older generation to talk, to discuss, to exchange our thoughts, so we can imagine ourselves putting ourselves in our other shoes, thinking about how it's going to be. And I think providing those kind of spaces are really important, and that's what we're doing today, right? We're discussing, we're talking, and without discussing, without talking, we will never know what is happening on the other side of our space. So yeah, I think that my take from, and I'm really, listening to your experiences in the arts, also in journalism, it resonates a lot, even in academics, even in, because it's always like that. There's always comparison. There's always like, why are you doing that? No, why can't art just be art? No, it cannot. Why can't journalism just be journalism? It cannot. It has its activism side. It has its political side. So I think redefining, reimagining what we mean by political is what we're doing today. Yeah.
This is us grieving the loss of our space that has been cubed into the space. Okay, Devina, do you have any?
Probably just to sum up what has been said by three amazing speakers here is that when we talk about the relations between the groups in society, just to say, like younger generation versus the older one, the elites versus us, the precariat, and also men versus women. It reminds me of something I read by David Graeber in Utopia of Fools. He talks about something called burden of care, in which Ika mentioned something about the ignorance or the unwillingness to understand younger generation. And he also said something about that, like the gap of understanding between the teacher and the students. It all falls down to power structure, where people who don't have power have to understand those who do. And the burden of care falls to us. And it's kind of like emotional labor that is not recognized so far, because we have to understand the way those with power think, because we live in the world that is shaped by them. And to be political sometimes is just to resist that, to resist the structure, and to try to go beyond our, let's just say, privileges, to understand those who so far have been forced to understand us. It's just as simple as that, to understand people.
Okay, yay! Maybe as a closing question, I would like to ask each of our speakers, grief, loss, and human rights, our theme. What are you grieving for today?
Of course, I am first and foremost grieving. I am presenting this zine and this exhibition with great grief and love because of the issues they talk of, be it personal, collective, or structural. I know I said that it's been amazing curating for this zine and exhibition. It is amazing, but it's also been quite painful to read and to see all of their artworks. So I am grieving with all of the artists here, with their own personal loss, with their own loss of a family, a friend, or even their own youth, their own time, and their entire people who has been robbed, slaughtered, mass murdered under the under state sponsored violence, under wage theft, under poverty, and I am grieving with all of you guys who are experiencing those in daily life and in your lifetime. That's one. And two, I am grieving for how expensive it is, the tickets for me to get back to Jogja. It's now 600,000. It's usually like around 3,000 or 4,000. Yeah. Train, yes. I am grieving hugely about that. Yeah. It's high season.
Okay, actually I'm grieving for so many things that we lost due to the pandemic. How the pandemic changed us as a human, as a woman, as a daughter. And the amount of things that we lost that we cannot get it back even forever, until when we don't know yet. We're still now struggling every single day just to be healthy, mentally, physically, in the middle of this pandemic. And I certainly actually grieve that I wish that this pandemic could makes us work better as a human and support each other as a human being. But instead, sometimes it still divide us and put us in putting each other's, even in much more worse positions and conditions. So I've experienced twice of the COVID, right? So me, myself, I've lost a lot because of that already. So I cannot imagine the amount of the other persons also experienced the loss that they experienced due to the pandemic in personal or communal context, right? So I think that is one of the heaviest grief that I experienced since the pandemic hit, to even to accept the fact that I've lost so much and we all lost so much because of the pandemic. And we're gonna have to deal with these loss. We do not know yet until when. So I think that's what I'm grieving right now.
I'm grieving for the rights that we might have lost to the passing of the new criminal code. As a journalist, working at a very small newsroom that has a very strong perspective towards what is just and unjust, I think, I don't know, I'm really not sure about our future because of the kind of work that we do, the kind of manner people that we serve. It's not something that is serving the power. I'm grieving for whatever might have been robbed from us.
Okay, I think there's so many things to grieve for. It makes a solemn ending, right, to the discussion. So maybe I'll try to make it more optimistic in a way. So I grieve for all of the griefs that you have explained, for what our friends are experiencing, in which they express this in the zine, for the pandemic, for the things we lost during the pandemic, the passing of the law that we cannot foresee what the future of Indonesia would look like. But I would also like to point out, even in the zine, we have to grieve, because grief brings us power to stand up and face reality. So if I can quote from the zine, from Forgotten, one of the art piece talks about gender-based violence, but in the art piece there's this symbolism of roses. So despite the grief, just like a rose, we can have pointed spikes, we can have leaves and petals, we can still have our self-worth and power. And also I think one other art piece that talks about grief but also talks about how we can sort of like deal with it is Hari Baik Bermain Gelombang Sabun. So let's remember our childhood when we play with gelombang sabun, the bubbles. I'm quoting from the art piece, peras luka dalam botol sabun, embuskan keluh kesah segala endapan marah. Walaupun gelombang pecah membuat sedih, tapi ini hari baik bermain gelombang sabun. So behind our grief, let's play with the soap bubble and try to find a burst of happiness so we can stand up and do something about it. Thank you.
I love that. I kind of forgot. A close friend of mine is also grieving, and I'm grieving with them. They just lost a family member, and like days ago, like not even a week. And that Hari Baik Bermain Gelembung reminds me of how they grieve, because sometimes the portrayal of grief only comes in, dramatic and big gestures like crying and sobbing your heart out, which is valid, of course. That's how I grieve. Maybe that's how some of you all grieve, but maybe some of you, just like my friend, process it in silence and process it in trying to make it associated with better memories, like happier memories, and that's also valid. So I don't think they're watching, but I acknowledge your grief because I haven't got the chance to say it.
This is a safe and brave space, and I'm so happy to be here. Okay, to close it off, we would like to have one of the artists of the artworks behind this wall. It's called Run Over, and it's made by Remi.
Hello everyone, good day. I'm so nervous, I'm just going to read. Everyone's okay. Hope everyone is doing well and in good health. My name is Remi and I'm one of the artists in YUWANA Zine in this exhibition. I'd like to share a bit of remarks, and it is an honor to be here right now, so thank you YUWANA Zine and YUWANA Talk. Thank you so much. So, my motivation to be part of this YUWANA exhibition at first was actually because I was inspired by Ika Julie. I was inspired by his activism, and really I really look up to them. And there's also a feeling of wanting to be heard and a longing or yearning inside of me to connect with Southeast Asian artists. Because I have been feeling really isolated for a long time. So yeah, thank you so much, YUWANA Zine, for facilitating our voices. My artwork, Run Over, is inspired by my experience and the condition of the world. It depicts a child's body in the middle of the road, and there's a plant growing from the child's body. I'm nervous. My hands are shaking. So it talks about like grief, like isolation from being neurodivergent can make someone feel like they're already dead. Because inequality is so deeply rooted in the system, and it's not sustainable for human well-being, let alone for the future of this planet. It feels like getting hit by cars. That's why it's called run over. It feels like getting hit by cars and being stranded alone on the road, and this reality happens to many people in this world every single day. Lamenting a lost childhood, a lost life, or a life that could have been. The plant that's growing from the child's chest, it represents hope. When someone passes away, their body becomes one with this earth or nature one way or another. So, from whatever remains of the child's body, may another life grow. It's like a little hope. I call it a post-human hope, that a phase or a cycle would pass, or another hopeful future would come. Maybe not now or not in this lifetime, who knows? But surely in the future, it's just a little post-human hope. And furthermore, I feel so delighted that my doodle could somehow resonate with people and be selected for this exhibition. I was very isolated, but through this forum, I feel more connected now. It feels amazing. I hope more Southeast Asian youths would want to voice out their views, whether through art, writings, or other medium, and join the next YUWANA Zine. Because it is a powerful opportunity, especially in this crucial time where equality is being gatekept and democracy is being shut down. Because we are the future and each of us is precious. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, to close this off, I would just like to say that any feelings, sadness, grief, sorrow, as we have grief before here, whether it comes in form of anger or silence or crying, it can drive activism, and activism can be channeled through arts, and we encourage you, the youth, to claim spaces creatively, and happy human rights, everyone!